cars. We know that. We love the bend, the on the run. Of course, the big event coming there, 29, 31. I'll just give you a little quick rundown here because I gave you the whole rundown on our next guest. We won't get to ask him any questions. Our next guest, Todd Hazelwood, Adelaide boy. That's a big tick straight away.
What we like.
2013, mate. He wins the Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000. Twice he's won Sandown 500, 2006, 2015. He's received the Mike Cable Award for the Young Gun. I love that. The Young Gun Award, 2003. 2015, International V8 Supercar Championship. Ford's first win in 5 years, if you don't mind. He started go-karting too, 25 state championships in that. So we'll just give you a brief overview. He's had 38 wins already, so I reckon we're lucky to get him in here. We don't get too many superstars, especially at 26 years of age. Hey, Todd, really appreciate you coming in, mate.
No, likewise. Thanks for being part of the show and look forward to having a chat.
Mate, let's talk about the on-the-run track. You know, it's been a year nearly coming up since you've been on the track. How did you find the track last year?
Yeah, the circuit at Tail and Bend is obviously internationally renowned and it's world class in itself. And from a driving experience, it's super challenging. There's no corners the same. You know, obviously it's one of the longest circuits that we get to race on. We actually race on the international circuit, so it's not the full proper 7.77 kilometre circuit, but it's still long enough for us drivers to get into mischief and to get a bit of trouble and always puts on a great show out there.
I'll tell you what is good, Todd, is being in the corporate box because at the start, you're right over the top of it. The engines, the sound, I mean, it's just such a fantastic event. One, for, the drivers, but for the spectators as well. You basically feel like you're on the track.
Yeah, and that's the really cool thing of the Supercars program. You know, essentially we are a circus on wheels that travels around the country, and it's always a consistent comment that we get. Everyone loves the thrill and the excitement when they're at the racetrack. Obviously, you can watch it on TV, and the telecast is amazing and it's world class. But to be there, and like you said, when you got 25 cars bouncing off the rev limiter at 7,500 RPM before the race kicks off, it really does get the heart racing.
That was one of the most spectacular things I've seen in sport. When I was standing in the corporate box and I was right over the start. It was just amazing. I reckon I must have, because I've filmed it, I reckon I would have shown it 100 times, the next couple of weeks. It was so exhilarating.
I think what you said, Todd, is spot on. Go. Get there, be there, because they look fantastic on TV. There's no doubt about that. When you find them, somewhere where they put those cameras on the corners and where they fly on these corners. If you're there, it is one of the most amazing things to see. It's like a hot lap. I always tell people, go and get a hot lap. How many of them have you done?
Definitely,
telling Todd this, mate. He's there.
You don't have to sell me on the dream, that's for sure.
You've never been in the corporate box, clearly, mate.
No. I'm talking to the punters.
Oh,
the punters ought to get there. I know he's going to be there.
Right.
He's going to be one of these But it is great to be there live. That's what I'm trying to get at.
For the punters. And you've got to get there.
I'm a great fan. I used to watch a lot on the box, but I went to a few at Adelaide. Wow. It's just like a wow factor. And Ando just said it then. When you see it live, when you see these guys, how quick they go, whoa.
I mean, we're talking about it. They're talking about it here, seeing it. They're seeing it from above. And what's it like for you on the track, the moment where you're sitting there waiting for the green light? What's that moment like for you?
Yeah, I suppose when you're strapped in the cockpit and obviously there's a lot of noise and atmosphere going around at the time, but it's just trying to obviously block all that out, focus on the job, and you're essentially trying to treat everything like a process. Because obviously if you let the nerves get on top of what you're trying to achieve, you're always going to, there's going to be errors, and obviously from our point of view, we can't afford to be making mistakes in the high pressure moments. But it's a great buzz, seeing how, like you guys mentioned, seeing everyone enjoying themselves, having a great time, and being blown away by the experience, being at the racetrack. That's why we put on a show, and that's why we really enjoy what we do.
That's a great show, mate, to be honest.
Mate, you put on a great show. You've had a little run-in already with a bloke earlier in the year, mate. We don't want to drag out on that, but there was a little accident. I don't know if you saw it. Absolutely bucketing with rain in Sydney. Yeah. So the track, I imagine, is as slippery as it can be, and even with your skills, once you hit that patch, and we talked about it before, you start the aquaplane going. So once you aquaplane, there's actually nothing you can do, is there? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you could take your hands off the wheel and keep your foot on the brake. Doesn't mean you're going to slow down or wash off any speed, because obviously when we're travelling at over 200 kilometres an hour, you're nearly travelling the whole length of the football oval in about just over a second. So give you appreciation of how fast things are moving. So when you're out of control in that instance, there's not much we can do, unfortunately. And obviously, as you mentioned, slippery conditions, the wet tyres that we have on the race car, they're not really designed to have torrential rain as well. They're a very hard, soft, wet tyre, if we call it. So they don't offer a lot of grip as it is. So it's just the perfect storm for that scenario. And it's always a bit awkward when in that instance, I got squeezed all the way to the wall. It was actually racing to the checkered flag. We were side by side, and Then basically hit the wettest part of the circuit was basically a whole pool of water sitting up alongside the fence, and then once I hit that, the car broke away at about 250 kilometres an hour, and I was a passenger for about 400 metres sliding down the road.
One of the things we love in sport is we like to see a bit of biffo, we like to see a bit of
do.
push and shove. Of course, you don't often see it in yours because they're in the cars, but at this moment you've got two blokes, the adrenaline's running, plus dealing with the aquaplaning. So two blokes jump out of the car, one bloke jumps out and he's hoeing into Todd here, and then Todd gets out and he's trying to explain what happened. Can you just take it, because he hasn't seen everything that's happened, so Frosty clearly thinks it's your fault. You've jumped out with, mate, I'm trying to explain to you what's going on. How does that moment play out?
Oh, look, you can always explain yourself and you can try and sell your story, but if they don't want to buy it, they don't want to buy it. That's fair enough. You're never going to keep everyone happy in our industry.
Does he see it later, though? Do you ever look back later? Does he ever walk back later and go, mate, sorry about that, you're right, I didn't see what happened?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Not really a
But
driver
obviously
will
not
ever
this time.
apologise or admit that they're wrong. We're always right in our own eyes. So there's a lot of egos, and obviously from a mental point of view, everyone's trying to get the competitive edge on each other. So they might think to themselves that maybe I should have maybe apologised or said something a bit different. But that's the competitive edge that in our game that we're in. There's only 25 seats available in our industry, and it's ruthless out there. There's no friends.
You said earlier, mate, you're a lucky boy, South Australian. We've got 2 races here, which is fantastic, really. We're at the Bend, which is, as you said, world class. But gee, the Adelaide 500, wow, that had a great reputation before it was stopped. That was massive. And it was a big surprise when it was stopped. Was it a surprise to the drivers?
Oh, it was a massive shock. Obviously, for me, from a selfish point of view, being a proud South Aussie, that was the event that made me fall in love with motorsport for a starters. But the event itself and the track and the challenge and obviously the spectacle it puts on, it's loved by the whole eternity of Australian motorsport. So there was a lot of people in South Australia that would obviously question the event. Obviously, it's a disruption to the city and this, that and the other. But from the way we looked at it, it far outweighed the negatives that it brought to, from the positive impact that it not only brought to South Australia and Adelaide in particular, putting the spotlight on the city, but obviously the economic benefit it brought into the state as well. And from our point of view, from a motorsport, it was the #1 event of the year. We all, particularly in supercars, we talk about Bathurst, but it brings over 150,000 more people than what Bathurst does, and that's our biggest event of the year that we refer to.
And will be again. It will be
exactly.
Well, spectator-wise, it was bigger than the Formula Ones.
Correct.
So that was, it's quite amazing. People don't realise that the more came to the supercar here at in Adelaide, in the streets of Adelaide, it brought Adelaide alive than it did in for the Formula One.
And like growing up as a kid, I didn't appreciate how big the Adelaide 500 was until I started going to other supercar events, and I just expected them all to be the same size. But it certainly grew a new appreciation.
How did you get involved in the car racing? I mean, you're looking at your portfolio, you go way back to the
motorbikes first.
Motorbikes and then the karts, and then just make your way through. I mean, like we all had the little toy Hot Wheels when we were kids, but how'd you get involved?
Yeah, I suppose that little Hot Wheel just become a bigger toy in many years to come, I guess.
So it went from seriously bigger, mate.
A very cheap hobby to a very expensive hobby. As you mentioned, 2-wheel background. My dad raced desert bikes out in the Mallee region as a kid, but from his point of view, obviously it was very dangerous, and he had a few bad incidents, so pushed me towards 4 wheels. But I was mad keen on motorsport as a kid growing up, and desperately wanted to race something, and that's where I got introduced to dirt karting here in South Australia at 7 years old. Did that for 5 years, and the dream for me was always to end up in professional motorsport, particularly whether it be overseas in say F1 or here in Australia in supercars. So made that transition when I was 12 years old into bitumen karting, and haven't looked back.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to chat with Todd about his career and extend on that. So we'll go to a break, back with more of that.